Going from 300 to 500 million was the offer a couple years ago, and it ended up selling for, drum roll please, $4 million. Now, how in the world did it go from half a billion to 4 million? Greg, come on, you got to let us in on this.
Woo!
You're like,
It's a long, wild story. Uh, it it really came down to timing, I would say, and investor greed, and everybody not being in alignment with what the plan was and what needed to happen and the timeline in which it needed to happen. And so when everybody becomes out of alignment, it creates a lot of chaos. And then people aren't really interested in buying something that's very chaotic.
investor greed. So you
Mm,
use that, and I think that whether entrepreneurs listening have ever gone through an acquisition or a potential acquisition, I think we all understand at a guttural level what that might feel like. But
hmm.
let's give some context around this. So you founded a company called Tessemae's All Natural.
Hmm.
What year did you found that?
2009.
All right, so '09. Oh, so this is not a young company, been around a while. So
Yep.
2009, you founded the company, and in 2022 ish,
Yep.
you have a valuation, put on this thing. So, like I said, between 300 and 500 million, which is congrats, dude. Like that's significantly amazing. But something happened, went off the rails, and it took it down, and you ultimately sold it for $4 million.
Hmm.
Um, Tell us a little bit about how it felt when it was all over and done. The money had been transferred. Let's start with the emotion, and then we'll go back and fill in the details.
Well, the end was interesting because it had been going on for a long time. It's almost like a loved one is on hospice. So you have a lot of time to say your goodbyes and reflect and think through what went right, what went wrong, and how you got to this point. Was the last 15 years of your life worth that level of sacrifice to then have that type of outcome? And so a lot of things were going on, a lot of reflection was happening. And what I realized in all of my reflections was that failure, like beauty, is in the eye of the beholder. And so every obstacle I overcame, every lesson that I learned, every component of business strategy that I developed, it all came from the failures, not really the big wins. And so as I looked forward on my journey, where I was going to be going and why, um, there was a part of me was not happy, but glad that I had gone through all of that because it made me a much better man. And it gave me this playbook that I could use for other ventures, which I'm now in, and they're very effective and efficient, and everything has more purpose and there's more fun. And so it was all worth the pain and suffering.
Well, so we're talking today on the root of all success with very successful and a big failure, Greg Vetter. But listen, listen. I think he laughs because he understands what I mean by that. Because I'm an entrepreneur too, and I've lost a company. I lost a company that I built, and it wasn't anywhere close to $500 million valuation like you did. But I think the emotion, I think the emotion is exactly the same whether it's $1 billion or $1 million, because if you don't get what you thought you're going to get. But we're talking with Greg Vetter. He's started various enterprises. We should talk about Tessemae's All Natural. He's also has the company Alta Fresh Foods and Homegrown Brands. And he wrote a book. The book is called Undressed. And if you see the cover of the book, I don't know if he's really naked, but it almost he's like covering himself up in all the right spots.
All
But
right.
and congrats on the body, dude. I wouldn't do that now, but I'm hoping I would be brave enough to do that later. But anyhow, it's called Undressed: the unfiltered story of my failed American dream and how it led to success. So since this is the root of all success, I want to get down to, how did building a company in '09 to 22, and then and in pre-show when I asked you about it, you used the word I lost my company. but then you said you sold it for 4 million. And I think there's a bazillion people listening to this show that would say, dude, I would take 4 million in a heartbeat.
Right.
I'd take 4 million now. But like the pain of that is has to be significant. So let's talk about that. Tell us the origins of Tessemae and how that got started.
I graduated college and I was very concerned I was going to be a complete failure. And so I took a bunch of jobs and ended up selling insurance and realized that's not what I wanted to do with my life. And so I would go home every day during my lunch break and I would stand on my head waiting for an epiphany so that, this amazing idea was going to allow me to change my stars and I was going to make money and I was going to live a life worth living and writing about and reading about. And months went by and every day at lunch, I'd go home, I'd stand on my head, nothing would come. I would go downstairs, I'd make myself a big salad with a protein on it and pour this dressing that my mom made for me on top. And one day I walked downstairs and this 2-liter bottle of salad dressing that my mom had made for me was missing. And so I'm walking around my little townhouse and I can't find this dressing. And I don't want to call my wife and say I can't find it because our kitchen was very small and you do not misplace a 2-liter bottle of salad dressing. And then I finally called her and I said, hey, did you take the dressing? And she goes, no, I didn't take the dressing. Maybe someone came in our house and took it. I go, someone took our salad dressing from our house. And she goes, I don't know what to tell you, Greg. Call some people. I go, I'm not calling people about stolen salad dressing. And so finally, out of spite, I go, you know what? I am going to call some people. I'm going to call people I know don't eat salad. And so I called this one guy and he picked up the phone. And I said, dude, crazy question, man. Have you seen my salad dressing? And he's like, yup. Woke up this morning, was jonesing for it, knew the code to your house, came over, took the dressing, and now I'm crushing a salad. And I just stood, I swear. And I stood there in complete shock. And I said, if a man is going to steal another man's salad dressing, it must be good enough to be a company. And so I called my wife back and I said, you're not going to believe this. So-and-so broke in. He took the dressing. She laughed. And then I go, I'm going to start a salad dressing company. And there was dead silence. And then she goes, that's the best idea I've ever heard. It's going to work.
Wow.
And so I took the only skill I had, which was cold calling at the time. And I started calling grocery stores and telling them I was a world famous food manufacturer. And we ended up getting a shot at a grand opening of a new grocery store in Annapolis, Maryland, May 5th, 2009. And that's when the journey began.
Man, holy crap. So what's the dude's name who stole your dressing?
Smitty.
Big props to Smitty. So he, like, how many times had he eaten this dressing? Had he had it before?
Yeah, so my mom made this one dressing. I'm the oldest of 3 boys, and she needed us to eat our veggies. And so she came up with this dressing. It was just olive oil, lemons, garlic, mustard, and sea salt. We all played college lacrosse and then professional lacrosse. And so she always brought it to the tailgates. It was all anybody ever asked for. And so everybody had this dressing. Nobody could ever replicate it, which was interesting. And so, yeah, it was a staple in our house and everybody loved it.
So I'm going to take a guess that your mom's name is Tessemae or something like that, right?
That's her nickname.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Tessemae makes this dressing. Now, had you ventured into entrepreneurship prior to this?
No.
What were you doing professionally?
I was selling employee benefits to companies.
Okay.
So
I did that too. I think everybody did that at one point.
Yep. So cold calling, the insurance agency was over top of a bodega overlooking a cemetery. And I would get in there and I would cold call from 6:30 a.m. until people stopped picking up the phones at around 5. And I did that every day. while playing professional lacrosse, which doesn't pay anything. So I was eating peanut butter and jellies every day.
Let's take a quick break to thank our amazing sponsors for making this podcast possible.
I finally got it. It's the brand new Relay credit card. So check it out. I'm gonna do a little unboxing for you so you can check this out. So here we go. Nice little case, kind of like the American Express. You know, they're not playing. They're doing it right. Oh, look at this. There's a quote right inside. It says, "Success is having to worry about every damn thing in the world except money." Johnny Cash. That's pretty good. I've not heard that one. Oh, this is nice. A little thing on the back, up to 1.5% cash back, no annual fees or interest, 30-day billing cycle. And there it is. It's the Relay credit card. It's a Visa. So I'm not going to show you my number, but there it is. Look at that. Boom. Go to the realjasonduncan.com/relay.
Thanks for listening to our sponsors. Now, back to the show.
So starting Tessemae's in those early years, you're grinding it out. You're having mom, I'm assuming, make all this stuff. At what point did you move from mom making it in the kitchen to I'm sure you used a co-packer at some point to do that? Is that right?
So we tried. So we actually invented clean manufacturing. So the reason the dressing tasted so good is because we didn't use thickening agents and we didn't use weird acids or preservatives or natural flavors. And so in the beginning, my brothers and I made it at night at a rib restaurant when it closed. And we would hand make this dressing. I mean, we were hand making it while we were still in 65 grocery stores, and we would just set up stainless steel tables and bowls, and we just had this massive handmade salad dressing operation. And so we kept trying to see if we could use a co-packer, but nobody made dressing at the time without thickening agents, with fresh garlic, with fresh lemon juice. So everything was dehydrated garlic, citric acid, natural flavor, just all these crazy things that, crazy stories. We were looking at a co-packer and they were explaining us how lemon is replicated. And they go, and over there is the citric acid, which gives it the tart that a lemon does. And on this bucket, it says, if this gets on your skin or in your eyes, immediately go to a burn station because you will be blind and it will basically melt your skin off. And I look at the people, I go, so you can eat that? And they go, absolutely. And I was like, I don't think this makes a lot of sense to me. So we ended up starting our own manufacturing plant and then retrofitting dressing equipment and all the machinery so that we could make dressing without thickening agents on a mass scale.
So I was just at the grocery store last night, and I don't often buy ice cream. I love ice cream. I don't often buy it at the store. I usually just save it for like a treat when I'm out somewhere. I'll get one, one serving. But last night I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy, we're there anyway. I'll buy a little pint, just a small pint. And so there's this ice cream place in Nashville called Jenny's. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Jenny's ice cream.
I know Jenny's.
Yeah, Jenny's is phenomenal. I had it for the first time just a few months ago. I don't know how I've missed it all my life, and I was blown away. I actually went to the Jenny's in East Nashville. So I saw Jenny's, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna buy the one I like. And but it was $8 for a pint, which is crazy. Crazy. But I told my wife, like, I'd spend $8 if I went to the ice cream shop on
right.
So then I saw this thing next to it, another pint, and I don't even remember the name of it, but its packaging said only 300 calories in the whole pint. I thought, well, that's better than 300 calories for a serving. So I looked at it and I just turned it around. Well, let me see what's in this, and I couldn't read the ingredients. Right. And then I picked up Jenny's because I'd never read Jenny's, and everything in Jenny's I could read. I was like, oh, I know what this stuff is. And so ultimately I bought the one that was $8 when I could have bought the one that was $4. So I think what you did with Tessemae's is where food has needed to go for a long time. You need to get back to being all natural. Now, is that what Alta Fresh Foods and homegrown brands did too? Is that the impetus was like, hey, we want to be, you could be able to read the ingredients and understand what's in this stuff?
Yeah, so Alta Fresh Foods actually eliminated food waste for these giant grocery stores. So when you go into a grocery store and you buy a chicken Caesar salad that's ready to go for a family of 4, we created a way so that there was no food waste for the grocery store. So it used to be something where they would just ship you massive amounts of ingredients, and then somebody in your commissary would chop stuff up and they would assemble salads, and maybe they're throwing away half the lettuce because it goes bad, and maybe they over ordered chicken. And so for us, what we did was we figured out that we could ship people exactly what they needed to make all of these salads in the grocery stores, exactly how they needed to make them with exact instructions. So whatever you ordered, all of it was used. And so we're still, we still try and get people using clean ingredients when we can, because that's, that was our entire existence. That was my entire purpose for a long time. But, convincing people to change their habits is no easy feat. So, we try and solve problems when we can, and then we also try and give the people what they want when they want it.
Yeah. Well, so in your book, Undressed, this, what you call the unfiltered story of my failed attempt or a failed American dream and how it led to success. Well, I want to dig into that in the second half of our conversation here. So first of all, when did you write the book? Was it after, like recently, like after the failure, it went from half a billion down to 4 million? Is that when you wrote it?
I began one, I never thought I was going to write a book. It was kind of an exercise of me just documenting what had happened. I wanted to really kind of figure out the lessons that I learned. There was a part of me that wanted my kids to just know the true story of how hard it was, what it actually takes to build something of substance, and then also all the things that I learned with it not working out. And so the initial process of the book started before Tessemae's ever ended. And so it was just me writing every morning with no rhyme or reason behind it. And then the next thing I knew, I had 350 pages. And so, I was talking to my performance coach, and he was like, well, let me read it. And so he started reading it, and he was like, are these stories real? I was like, yeah, they're real. And he's like, dude, this is the most insane business story I've ever read. You need to publish this. This needs to be a book. So the entire process started before the final signatures were done. And then as it all unfolded, I was able to write the ending almost in real time, so that all the wounds were fresh. And so it wasn't something where I'm looking back 10 years from now and I'm trying to glorify different parts of it. The book and the lessons learned are current. They are real. I use them in all of the new ventures that I'm in. And there are so many different aspects of the book that are valuable to different people at different levels of it doesn't even have to be a business journey. It's about following your dream, whatever that dream is. And then this is a pressure test, or it's a filter to run through and think to yourself, am I prepared to go through this level of suffering, to overcome these types of obstacles, to pursue my dream? And then if it doesn't work out, am I mentally strong enough to press on for myself and my family, to continue to lead by example, so that I can show people what's possible and I can show resilience and persistence? And so all of it has been just a very interesting life experience. It's a lot of new wrinkles in the brain for me, for sure.
Well, I think what I like about what you just said there is that you wrote the ending in real time. And here's why I think that's really important. And I think people should read your book, is because we often see and hear people stand on stage at these these business conferences talking about how they overcame failure, but they're talking about it as if it was, because it happened a decade ago, and now they've got a platform. So now they're willing to talk about it.
Right,
And I'm like,
right.
okay, that's great. But what about the emotion of what it was like in the middle of the storm?
Yeah.
So Greg, I know you and I don't know each other. We met for the first time here on the show today, but like I lost a business at the end of last year. About a year ago, it started to kind of crumble. And this is not my story, but to tell you like how I empathize with you, because as I was going through that last year, I wasn't writing a book, but I did record. I've recorded, I think to date, 47 videos of just raw, like in the emotion, like here's what I'm experiencing right now. I've not released anything, and I don't really plan to, but I did it because I thought I'm going to overcome this. I mean, I knew it. You knew it too. Like we entrepreneurs know we're going to overcome this crap in the middle of it. We know, even though we don't know how, we know we're going to.
Right.
So I love that you wrote it in the middle of that emotion and you were able to communicate that. Now your coach, I think, is good. It was a good idea. So I don't know what I'm going to do with my videos at some point if I ever release them. I'm not sure, but it's hours and hours. I mean, it's documented. Not that I want somebody to make a documentary of my story, but like that emotion. So let me ask you about that emotion, because I asked, that was kind of one of my first questions about that emotion. I mean, tell us, were there moments that you thought like my world is over? This is crazy. This is insane. Or was it like, man, that sucks? Like on the level of the negative emotions, where were you?
There were multiple phases of the journey. It was long, 2009 to 22. And so there were moments where if you can die from stress, in 2017, I thought I was going to die from stress, for sure. When I didn't die from stress, it was this moment of, okay, I'm alone. And if this is going to work, I'm going to be the one to do it. So sitting here being stressed isn't helping anybody. I need to get up and I need to take action and I need to regroup and I need to refocus and I need to figure out what skills I currently don't have that I need to acquire so that I can be the leader everybody needs me to be, including myself. And so that was probably the lowest point I ever got. When all of this was happening, it was so action-packed and it was so chaotic. It was a battle. It was a battle scene, right? I was getting attacked from every angle you could be attacked from. So there were moments of, this is annoying. This sucks. I need to find a way to persevere. I need to find a way to win. But at that phase of my journey and myself, you can have fight or flight. I'm a fight guy. And so really what my reflections had to teach me was, when it's time to continue to give this full insane effort in the battle, and when it's time to slow down a little bit, and maybe you need to lose the battle to win the war, because the return on my time or the return on my energy just wasn't there, and it didn't feel like it was ever going to be there, and I needed to almost let go and see where the white water was going to take me. And so in those battles, yes, you're dealing with so much crazy emotion, you don't know which way's up. But I tried to ground myself every morning and have silence and write and read and meditate and pray and prepare myself, not for 72 and sunny with a slight breeze, but for going into a hurricane. And so taking that time every day to prepare for the storm allowed me to stay focused during it and not really go back into a negative, stressed out state where I couldn't make the right decisions.
Let's take a quick break to thank our amazing sponsors for making this podcast possible.
As an entrepreneur running multiple businesses, effective communication is critical for me. I've tried all kinds of outreach tools over the years, but none have compared to Dubb when it comes to driving real results, and that's DUBB. I was one of Dubb's first users. I think it was like 7 years ago when they first launched, and I've been a loyal customer ever since. Dubb has completely transformed my prospecting, my client communication strategy, and here's why. Dubb makes it simple to record personal video messages and share them across email, SMS, social media, and more. And this brings back the face-to-face connection that's missing from most digital outreach. And what happens is my prospects instantly feel more engaged when they can put my face to my name. I end up building a stronger relationship faster by incorporating these video messaging into my workflow. Dubb also provides tracking and analytics so I can see exactly who engages with my videos and how they respond to them. Their automation and their CRM features help me nurture leads and close more deals. I mean, that's what we're trying to do, right, as entrepreneurs. So after using Dubb for years, I absolutely can't recommend them enough. I mean, Ruben, those guys over there are phenomenal. I love Darius. They're all great guys. It's become an invaluable tool that I depend upon to run my businesses efficiently. And if you want to boost your outreach and see amazing results like I have, head over to therealjasonduncan.com/Dubb. That's DUBB, and you can try it completely for free. No credit card required. You get the first 50% off your first 2 months, by the way, if you use my link. You need to take your prospecting to the next level with video messaging from Dubb. They're my go-to sales communication platform for nearly 7 years and counting. Go to therealjasonduncan.com/Dubb. Try it for free, no credit card required, and you'll get 50% off your first 2 months as well.
Thanks for listening to our sponsors. Now, back to the show.
You said earlier, failure, like beauty, is in the eye of the beholder. And I love that quote. I wrote it down. I think that's really, really wise. And only somebody who's gone through the crap that you've been through would know what that means. And I also know what that means because I've gone through similar failures as you have. But I think the interesting thing about the subtitle of your book is that how the story of your failed American dream, which is the word failure, and how it led to success. So let's shift in our final few minutes together today. What point of failure do you think was the biggest cause of your next level of success?
Just the realization of my greatest fears being on display for the world to see. There's a great quote that I use all the time from Joseph Campbell. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. And so my greatest fear was the fear of failure. And when you actually start doing a lot of research into what the fear of failure is, it's actually the fear of shame from failure. It's not losing. It is the pain that comes from losing. And it is the shame that comes from losing. And so when all of your greatest fears are realized for the world to see, there's nowhere to hide. And you are who you are. You're completely exposed. You are undressed. And so being undressed and being exposed, you're then left with this bizarre amount of freedom and this bizarre amount of experience where you can take anything. It's a blank piece of paper in the book of your life, and it's a new chapter, and it's for you to write, which is interesting because prior to that moment of complete public shaming failure, you're following a story thread. I need to do these things for this reason. The board expects this. The brand expects this. So you're doing a lot of almost defensive maneuvering. Whereas when it all ends, you have a blank slate. And so in that blank slate, you reflect and here are the things I did right, and here are the things that I did wrong, and here are the things that I wouldn't do again, and here are the things that I would do again. And so you can take all of these magnificent failures that you have and all of the wins that you put together, and you can say, I'm going to test these out and see if I'm right. Each new experience is a new case study to see whether or not the learning lessons that I have are true. And so that is really what has happened and how I was able to take failure and then turn it into success.
I believe that one of the most powerful things you just said there, and that nobody, unless you've gone through what you've gone through, and of course I've gone through a similar thing, and I'm sure some listeners have done it. Nobody understands what you just said about the fact that the fear of failure, or the pain of failure, is the fear of shame.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe I'm misquoting what you said, but I think the intent was, in the middle of that, what you're afraid of is the shame that it brings and looking like a failure in front of people. It's not that you lost,
right?
It's that you are afraid of what people think of you because you lost. And I remember a moment, it was about this time last year, early to mid-November. I remember like I'd had some calls, and I wasn't dealing with 9 figures like you were, but it was a significant amount of a number that I thought the company was about to sell for. And I had the call that it was over. And I remember laying down, face down in the carpet in my office. And like, I'm not an emotional person, so I wasn't crying, but I was spent, I was done.
Yeah.
And I laid there for, I don't know, probably 30 minutes. And my wife came home, and she, as she would normally do, she came into my office, and there I am laying on the floor. Of course, she didn't know what was wrong. Hey, are you okay?
Right.
And all I could say was no. And I think back now, and like, what was that emotion? It was shame. I was afraid that people were going to think I'm a failure. And I think your story illustrates that. So let me ask you this question, Greg. What do you personally define success as? Because you say in your book is that this failure led to my success. So what do you believe? What's your definition of success?
It's changed over time, for sure. I think most people, when they start out, success is money. It's money related. What I've learned, each time you hit a new low, things become more clear. And so now money is obviously important because you got to pay your bills, and kids need food, and they play club sports and all that great stuff. But really, success, as I see it, there's 4 things money can't buy. And it's your health, your time, your soul, and your children's love. And so as I'm embarking on all these new ventures, there are potential time commitments, and there's decisions that need to be made, and there's trade-offs with your health, and there's you potentially trading your time with your children for greed. And those are things that I don't do anymore. So if I can manage those 4 pillars of what money can't buy while doing things that bring me joy and fill me with purpose and are financially rewarding, that combination is the combination of success for me. Whereas when I was a younger man, I was willing to trade everything for the company just being successful, making money. And you realize once you do that, the trade-off wasn't worth it. You know, you hit these different levels of financial success, and if you don't have those 4 pillars dialed in, it doesn't matter.
Beautiful, beautiful definition. So by that definition, do you consider yourself to be successful?
By that definition of my own making, yes, I am successful. If you ask me, when people go, wow, Greg, what a success you are. I don't consider myself, I would say, a success by most people's standard of what they're actually referring to. But in terms of the things that I care about and how I live my life and how I spend my time and the projects that I'm working on and the joy that it brings me and my family, yes, I am a success by that measure.
Well, as we finish our conversation today, I want to say before I give you this final question, like I am more impressed with you now having this conversation than I was reading your bio and reading your story ahead of time. And so I want to congratulate you on your failure. I want to congratulate you on that because it's made you who you are today, and the clarity that I can see that you have looking into the future and with your kids, your wife, and everything that's going on. So, while none of us in the middle of failure is thankful for it, I think you probably look back now and go, hey, I'm thankful for these lessons. I do the same thing. So congratulations on that, but also congratulations on the fact that you didn't stay in that, because failure is a temporary stop on life's journey. It only becomes true failure if you stop moving. And I think you continue to move. And so congratulations on continuing to move. So I want to give you the last word on the show today. So if you have to give your best piece of advice to entrepreneurs who are potentially struggling with that potential shame, that failure there in the middle of it, what would you say? What is your best piece of advice? And like, this is it, man. So what do you got for us? Because we need that encouragement.
It's that quote, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." If you keep that in the back of your mind when you're going on your business journey or your life journey or following your dreams, things are going to work out in your favor.
Well, Greg, thank you for being on the show today. It's truly been an honor. I'd like to say that every conversation I have on the show is interesting and fun to have, and they're not. Like, you do this many shows, there's going to be some people that I don't have a good time talking to, but this was one of them. This is a great conversation. I wish we lived closer together. I'd love to sit down and talk with you more about this. But again, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
There you have it. That's Greg Vetter and his story of his failed American dream and how that led to success. Go pick up a copy of his book, Undressed, the unfiltered story of my failed American dream and how it led to success. If you're in the middle of that failure, if you're in the middle of struggling with what's going to happen next in your business, just know that you're not alone. First of all, there's millions and millions of entrepreneurs all over the world that have experienced similar, if different numbers are attached to it, but similar emotions. And like I said at the beginning, his was $500 million. Mine was significantly less than that. But the emotions don't change with the amount of money attached to it. The emotions are the same. So whatever emotion you're feeling right now, if it's $100,000 or $10,000 or $100 million, whatever it is, just know that what you're going through in your failure, like beauty, is in the eye of the beholder, said Greg. And I agree with him. So make sure that you continue to persevere, continue to listen to shows like this, continue to read books like what Greg's written, because you need to see that in the middle of the struggle, in the middle of the storm, that we and you can push through that. And there is success on the other side of that. And if you stop, that's when failure actually occurs. So don't stop moving. And then also his definition of success about getting the things that money can't buy: health, time, your soul, and your children's love. Listen, do not trade everything. I mean, like Jesus said, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his soul? And to add Greg's stuff to it, and his children's love and his time and his health. Like, what would it profit you if you did sell your company for $1 billion, but your wife leaves you, your kids hate you, and your health sucks? Like that, who cares? So big thanks to you for listening to the show. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here. If you haven't yet subscribed to the show, make sure you do that. We're on YouTube and we're on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, where they call it these days. We're on Spotify. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review. This was a fantastic episode. Big thanks to Greg and his team for getting him on the show today. So thank you for listening. And I'll tune in, or you tune in next week, and I will bring yet another successful entrepreneur talking about his or her journey to success. It probably has a lot of failure in it. So make sure you tune in again next time. As always, I am the real Jason Duncan, and Jesus is King.
Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Follow Jason on social media at The Real Jason Duncan. See you again next time here on The Root of All Success.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.